think everyone who has gathered here knows why we're here. We're here because of the planned shift of the 150 people. There's about 38 people went on Thursday. There's another plan for around 40 this morning. Similar numbers, and there will be another group planned for next week sometime that we haven't heard about yet. And I think well, it's a tragedy in all kinds of ways, isn't there, about this? But what this move is about, it is about making Villawood a far more secure detention centre, something that looks like Yongah Hill, something that looks like Christmas Island, something that looks like Curtin Detention Centre or Wickham Point. And we're here to let the people in know who are being shifted, those people who have got all kinds of connections with the community, with legal support, with the people who visit them week in, week out, day in, day out in some cases, to let them know that it doesn't matter. In one respect, it doesn't matter where they go. There is a movement which will reach out to Curtin, which will reach out to Yongah Hill, which will reach to Christmas Island as far as Manus Island and Nauru, if that's what it takes to actually build that movement and make sure that they come out of the detention centres. So there are already people in Western Australia, in Yongah Hill, who are ready to actually begin the visiting to make sure that the people who are shifted from here, and they are going to Yongah Hill, from the ones that are being shifted today are going to Yongah Hill, and people are already planning, trips to Curtin. But we need to make it very, very clear to the people who are being shifted that regardless of what happens today, I mean, it's possible that we won't stop the buses this morning. We'll do whatever we possibly can to stop the buses. But even if the buses do get through, that's not the end of the campaign. It won't be the end of us attempting to free the refugees and bring down the detention centre offences, no matter where they are in this country.
It's really important to them that you're here, they can hear you. I know you've all got contacts in there and you're aware of that. But what's also really important for us is the opportunity to say goodbye and to remember that some of these people have been through extremely traumatic situations, and while they're incredibly grateful and aware that we're out here to defend them, I don't think it would do them or you or our cause any good for things to become aggressive or out of control. We were here the other day, we supported everyone and we want change and we want to stand against this kind of behaviour. But we're mothers, that's why we're here, and we want you all to go home safe and well, and we want them to know that we're here, that we've done what we can and how important that is. We know every single one of these people on the bus today. We knew every single one of them. One in particular, I am very close to, Matunda, who was sitting up the front with handcuffs on. And I had the same reaction that everybody else did. But I want us to be effective and really to appeal to mainstream Australia. We need to change their mind. We need to look at how effective we are as a group and how we can convince them to see things realistically the way we do. Thank you.
Refugees.
Yes.
Racism.
No.
Detention centres
have got to go.
Refugees.
Yes.
Racism.
No.
Detention centres
Have got to go.
Refugees.
Yes.
Racism.
No.
Detention centres
Have got to go.
I just want to say a few words about the kind of campaign that I think we're going to need, that the Refugee Action Coalition thinks that we're going to need in order to allow us not to have to turn out here each and every time there's some atrocity going on in Villawood. What we need to do is not just intervene in cases like this, though we absolutely have to do that. The real work of this campaign, I think, is going to happen once we go home after today is over, and we need to firm up those roots that we have in our homes, in the places in which we work, in our sports clubs, in our churches if we have them, to spread the word about refugees, to embolden people who aren't here to engage in activism on this question. Because it's only an activist response from the grassroots that has any prospect of shifting public opinion. That's an ambitious thing to want to do, but that is the only way that this is going to happen. We cannot obviously rely on the major parties. We can't rely on letter writing. We can't rely on petitions to undo the viciousness and the state violence that we are seeing against refugees each and every day. And there's, I think, another point that we need to make here. This is not just about the 30 or 40 unfortunate souls who are about to be transferred. And I'd just like to pay tribute to the women visitors who are here, who feel very deeply about them and who want to say goodbye to them and want to offer them their support. I think each and every one of us understands that very basic human instinct fully, and good on them for being here. But there is an argument that I think we all need to understand about the nature of disruptive protest and the priorities that we have here. The only way that we are going to air this issue broadly in the national conversation, for want of a better word, is by doing something which allows us to force our way into the news cycle. And this kind of disruptive protest is going to do exactly that, and it's going to do that a lot more effectively than an essentially, than quietly standing by and waving goodbye to our friends as they leave for Curtin. Because it's that kind of disruptive intervention which is going to make a mark in the media. That's what's going to create a space for us to talk about what the government is doing to refugees. And if that kind of disruption means that we don't get to say goodbye to the people who are leaving today in exactly the way we want, we have to ask ourselves whether the benefits or the likely benefits of that are worth it. And I think the likely benefits of that are that we air the issue about refugees generally. Because none of us here can visit the refugees in Manus. None of us here can visit the refugees in Nauru. Very few of us can go to Curtin. Very few of us can go to Yongah Hill. And even if we could, we will continue having to visit these people until we end this miserable, vicious, rotten system once and for all. And it is very clear that the only way we are going to do that is by assertive, militant, disruptive protest if necessary. And that's, I think, why we're here. But let's not forget why we're here. We are not here principally to fight the police. That's not the aim of this protest. The aim of this protest is to draw attention to the vicious miserableness of the Australian government's stance towards refugees. We've got to say to politicians that they are the criminals. They are the criminals. And that they should take their vicious fear and warmongering and the harm that they are inflicting on innocent people only for asking us for help, because that's what all this is about. That's what all this is about. These people, the people in Yongah Hill, the people in Curtin, are asking Australia to help them. That's all they are doing. What a scandal. What a scandal that this is the way we are treating them. This is a blight on our society. This is a shame. Each and every one of us needs to do everything we can to reverse that. But we need to do it politically. We need a political response here which has the prospect of swinging public opinion back in favour of refugees. It's been there in Australia in the past. We can get it there again. And we need to know we need to let the refugees in Nauru, in Yongah Hill, in Curtin, in Manus know that we are here, and that, as Ian said, it doesn't matter what hellhole they push them into. We are going to be here to say that we are not going to allow this to happen if we possibly can. We need a political response here. We need to protest, and that is the best way of helping refugees and helping all refugees, not just the ones that we happen to be visiting. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm one of the mothers that comes out every week and visits boys out here, and I've just received a couple of messages from them. One of them was, hi all my friends in Sydney, I will not see you soon, and also I couldn't contact with you, so since I met you, I have good memories of you. I enjoyed your visits, and every time that I saw you, I would be happy. Summary, I will... Summary, I will leave the Villawood Detention Centre tomorrow morning and move to other regional. So you did a lot of kindness with me, thanks, and I'll never forget you. And the end, I say bye to you. There is a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are messengers of overwhelming grief and unspeakable love.
I acknowledge we're meeting today on the land of Indigenous people. This is their land, has always been, always will be their land. It is not our land to say to people don't come here. It's not our land to turn to those people who are most vulnerable and say, we're going to treat you at the lowest possible level of human rights that we can get away with. Shame on Tony Abbott, shame on Scott Morrison, shame on everybody who continues to support a policy that is nothing but the worst aspect of racism. It can only be said to be racist when you take a group of people who come to these shores, poor benighted people who've had a terrible time, who have come here to try and find some respite from the persecution and the threat of death, and expose them to the worst violations of human rights. It is a fundamental human right that people should have access to lawyers. It is a fundamental human right that people should have access to legal advice when they are ill-treated by the government. There are people in there being loaded onto buses whose sole crime is that they cannot continue to live in their home countries, who are treated appallingly by the Department of Immigration, whose personal details have been put out onto a website, and who, when they seek legal redress, not only are they moved halfway across the continent to an isolated detention centre in Western Australia, but they are used as an example to threaten every other asylum seeker and refugee in Australia who might seek legal advice. This is disgraceful. How appalling! How appalling! This does not belong in a democracy. To use people, to threaten people who have done no crime other than to seek legal advice because they have been ill-treated by a government department, to threaten them, to move them, to intimidate them, to take them across the country, to hide them away in an isolated detention centre in Yongah Hill in Western Australia. That is the ultimate act of a government that does not understand human rights. It's the ultimate act of a government that does not care for democracy. It's the ultimate act of a government that lives in a world where it feels it's okay to play to the 5% of Australians who are racist and ignore the 95% of Australians who have big hearts and who wish to welcome people here who cannot live in their home countries. Mr Abbott and Mr Morrison are making an example of these people. We don't do that in democracies. We don't take people and make examples of them. That is wrong fundamentally, it is wrong legally, it is wrong morally. We are here today because we have exhausted every other aspect, every other opportunity to make sure that the O'Farrell government, to make sure, shows you I'm a state politician, to make sure that the Abbott government lives up to its human rights obligations. We have been driven to the extremes of what we can do because of their intransigence. We have been driven here today by a government that doesn't care about the norms of human behaviour. We've been driven here by a government that has no moral legitimacy. Whatever happens here today, this is Scott Morrison and this is Tony Abbott, and it is their bad behaviour that has got us to this point here today. I say to you and I say to every Australian, let's find the best parts of ourselves. Let's not let the worst demons within us run loose. Let us find that which is good and decent within Australians. Let us let that loose on the problems that we confront as a nation. Let us not turn to the dark side. Let us not let people like Tony Abbott and Scott Morrison lead us down a path that ends up with us standing here today and these poor people, these poor human beings, these poor people who cannot live in their home countries being driven away. Let us stand up for what is decent and good in Australia. Let us let loose 1,000 points of light. Let us let loose the reality of a good and decent Australia that deals with people morally and legally. Thank you so much for being here today. This is a battle which will go right to the heart of Australia. This is a battle that will lead Australia to a better place. Thank you so much.
Refugees are welcome here. Refugees are welcome here. Refugees, free, free.